You clicked on this video because someone, a doctor, a nutritionist, a well-meaning family member, probably told you to eat more vegetables, and maybe you've been doing exactly that. Maybe you've been loading up your plate with salads and steamed things for months, and yet your numbers still aren't where they need to be. You're still waking up tired. You're still watching that glucose monitor with a knot in your stomach. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you've started to wonder, am I doing something wrong? Or is the advice itself wrong? Here's what I'm going to tell you right now, before we even get into the list. Not all vegetables are created equal when it comes to blood sugar. And the ones that most people, even people with good intentions, tell you to eat, are often not the ones that actually move the needle. The standard advice, the stuff printed on hospital discharge papers and government pamphlets, was not written with your specific biology in mind. It was written for a general population, and you are not a general population. You are someone living with diabetes or elevated blood sugar, and your body plays by a different set of rules. The 10 vegetables I'm going to walk you through today are not just healthy, they are biochemically targeted. Each one does something specific inside your body, to your liver, your gut, your pancreas, your nerves, your eyes, your blood vessels, and when you understand how they work, the way you shop, the way you cook, and the way you eat will change in a very concrete way. But before I get there, I want to leave you with a question that I'll come back to at the very end of this video. If one single vegetable, something you can buy at any grocery store for less than $2, has been shown in research to reduce fasting blood glucose and LDL cholesterol simultaneously, why is it almost never mentioned in standard dietary advice for diabetics? Keep that question in your mind. The answer is going to surprise you. I've spent a considerable amount of time pulling together the research behind this video. We're talking about dozens of clinical studies, metabolic analyses, and nutritional biochemistry papers, not opinion pieces, not wellness blogs, but peer-reviewed work examining how specific plant compounds interact with the human endocrine system, especially in people over 60. I wanted to make sure that what I'm telling you is not just theoretically interesting, but practically useful. The kind of thing you can act on today. Hold on a second. Before we go any further, I've put something together for you. It's called the Glucose Paradox. It's a free guide on blood sugar and diabetes, and you can grab it for free through the link in the description. I'm telling you this now because I want you to finish this video with a concrete tool in your hands. To get it right away, just click the link in the description, head over to my site, and drop your email. You'll receive the guide in your inbox a few minutes later. But I don't want to take up any more of your time. Let's get back to the video. Let's start with a vegetable that almost no one takes seriously, and that is precisely the problem: the cucumber. Most people think of it as filler, something you add to a salad to increase the volume without adding much of anything else. That dismissiveness is a mistake, and here's why. The cucumber is composed of more than 90% water, which makes it one of the most effective hydration tools available through food. Now, why does that matter for blood sugar? Because dehydration causes the liver to release stored glucose into the bloodstream as a compensatory response. Even mild, chronic dehydration, the kind that most seniors experience without realizing it, because the sensation of thirst diminishes with age, quietly elevates baseline glucose levels throughout the day. But beyond hydration, the cucumber contains a class of compounds called cucurbitacins. These bitter-tasting phytochemicals, found primarily in the skin and the ends of the cucumber, have been studied for their ability to support pancreatic beta cell function. These are the very cells responsible for producing insulin. When you eat cucumber regularly, with the skin on, you are not just hydrating, you are actively supporting the organ that your entire glucose management system depends on. The connection doesn't stop there. The kidneys, which work harder in people with diabetes due to the increased filtration load from elevated glucose, benefit directly from the high water and low solute content of cucumber. Better kidney function means more efficient glucose clearance. Everything is connected. The second vegetable challenges another deeply held assumption, that purple foods are merely decorative. The eggplant, specifically its dark violet skin, is one of the most concentrated sources of anthocyanins available in the vegetable world. Anthocyanins are flavonoid pigments. and their relationship to blood sugar management is more sophisticated than most people realize. They do not simply slow glucose absorption in the intestine. Though they do that too, they act on multiple levels simultaneously. At the gut level, they interfere with the alpha-glucosidase enzymes that break complex carbohydrates down into simple sugars, creating a natural and gentle delay in the rate at which glucose enters your bloodstream. This is the same principle behind certain diabetes medications, achieved here through food. At the vascular level, anthocyanins protect the endothelium, the delicate inner lining of your blood vessels, from the oxidative stress that elevated glucose generates over time. Diabetic vascular complications, including the peripheral circulation issues that lead to numbness and slow wound healing, are downstream consequences of this endothelial damage. At the neurological level, these same pigments cross the blood-brain barrier and reduce neuroinflammation, which is relevant because cognitive decline is significantly more common in people with poorly controlled blood sugar. The eggplant, eaten with its skin intact, is doing work in your gut, your circulatory system, and your brain simultaneously. The third vegetable on this list is one that many Americans have never tried, but that has been a staple of traditional Mexican medicine and diet for centuries. The nopal, also known as the prickly pear cactus pad, is available in many Latin grocery stores and increasingly in mainstream supermarkets. Its fiber profile is extraordinary. Nopal is dense with soluble fiber that, upon contact with water in your stomach, forms a viscous gel. This gel physically coats the inner lining of the intestine and creates a barrier that slows the passage of glucose into the bloodstream. The effect is not modest. Multiple clinical trials have documented measurable reductions in postprandial blood glucose, that is, blood sugar levels after a meal, when nopal is consumed alongside carbohydrate-containing foods. But the systemic reach of this vegetable goes further. That same soluble fiber is the preferred fuel of the beneficial bacteria that make up your gut microbiome. This matters enormously for diabetics, because research in recent years has made it increasingly clear that gut dysbiosis, an imbalance in the intestinal microbial community, is not just a digestive inconvenience. It is directly linked to insulin resistance. A damaged microbiome produces inflammatory compounds that interfere with the insulin receptor signaling on your muscle cells, making those cells less responsive to insulin's instructions to take up glucose. Nopal feeds the good bacteria, reduces that inflammatory load, and thereby improves whole-body insulin sensitivity in a way that starts in your gut but ends in your muscles and liver. The artichoke is the fourth vegetable, and it brings the liver into the conversation in a way that most diabetes discussions completely ignore. The liver is not a passive bystander in blood sugar management. It is in fact one of the most active players. The liver stores glucose as glycogen and releases it between meals to keep your blood sugar from dropping too low. In people with type 2 diabetes, this system often malfunctions. The liver becomes insulin resistant itself and releases glucose into the bloodstream, even when blood sugar is already elevated, a phenomenon sometimes called hepatic glucose overproduction. The artichoke contains a compound called cynarin, which stimulates bile production and supports liver cell regeneration. When your liver is functioning optimally, when its fat content is reduced, when bile flow is robust, when its detoxification pathways are clear, its glucose regulation improves. Cynarin also appears to inhibit an enzyme called HMG-CoA reductase, the same enzyme targeted by statin medications, which is why artichoke extract has been studied as a natural cholesterol management tool. For a diabetic whose cardiovascular risk is already elevated, the artichoke addresses two critical concerns at once. And because the liver plays such a central role in lipid metabolism, improving its function ripples outward into energy levels, mental clarity, and even sleep quality, since the liver performs much of its metabolic work during the overnight hours. Broccoli is the fifth, and while it may be the most familiar vegetable on this list, the mechanism by which it helps diabetics is far less familiar than the vegetable itself. The active compound here is sulforaphane, produced when you chew or chop broccoli, and the enzyme myrosinase acts on its precursor, glucoraphanin. Sulforaphane is one of the most studied plant compounds in modern nutritional biochemistry. At the cellular level, It activates a master regulatory protein called NRF2, which switches on hundreds of genes involved in antioxidant defense and detoxification. For a diabetic, this matters because chronic high blood sugar generates enormous quantities of reactive oxygen species, unstable molecules that damage cell membranes, proteins, and DNA. Sulforaphane essentially activates your body's internal antioxidant factory. But the benefit that is most directly relevant to your glucose numbers is its effect on insulin sensitivity. Sulforaphane has been shown to reduce the expression of genes involved in hepatic glucose production, directly targeting that liver dysfunction described earlier. It also improves the function of mitochondria, the energy-producing structures inside your cells, and mitochondrial dysfunction is now understood to be a core driver of insulin resistance. Better mitochondria means better glucose uptake in muscle tissue, which is where the vast majority of insulin-driven glucose disposal actually occurs. Broccoli is most effective when eaten lightly steamed or raw, since high heat degrades myrosinase and reduces sulforaphane formation. The carrot earns its place on this list, not in spite of its natural sugar content, but because of what surrounds that sugar. This is where the standard advice gets it most dangerously wrong. Diabetics are routinely warned away from carrots because of their glycemic index score. But glycemic index is a measurement taken in isolation, without the fiber matrix, without the food combinations that characterize real eating. In context, the fiber in a whole carrot significantly blunts the glucose response to its natural sugars. But more importantly, the carrot is one of the single best sources of beta-carotene available in the entire vegetable kingdom. And beta-carotene is the precursor to vitamin A. Why does this matter for a diabetic specifically? Because diabetic retinopathy, damage to the blood vessels of the retina, caused by chronic high glucose, is the leading cause of blindness in American adults. Vitamin A is essential to the health and regenerative capacity of the photoreceptor cells in your retina. It is not a cure for retinopathy, but it is a nutritional foundation without which your retinal cells cannot maintain their structural integrity. The carrot also contributes to immune function, which is compromised in diabetics, and to skin integrity, which is relevant because impaired wound healing is a chronic complication that begins at the cellular level with nutritional deficiencies. Eat your carrots. Don't let a simplified number on a chart take them away from you. Spinach is the sixth vegetable, and it addresses a deficiency so common among diabetics that some researchers have called it a nearly universal feature of the condition. Magnesium insufficiency. Magnesium is involved in more than 300 enzymatic reactions in the human body. Among its most critical roles is its function as a cofactor for the enzymes involved in insulin signaling and glucose metabolism. When magnesium levels are low, insulin receptor activity is impaired, meaning your cells become less responsive to insulin even when insulin is present in adequate quantities. Studies have consistently found that diabetics have significantly lower intracellular magnesium levels than non-diabetics, and that magnesium supplementation or dietary correction is associated with measurable improvements in fasting glucose and insulin sensitivity. Spinach is one of the most magnesium-dense foods available, and it delivers this magnesium alongside alpha-lipoic acid, a compound with a very specific and important function in diabetic physiology. It protects the peripheral nerves from the oxidative damage that manifests as diabetic neuropathy. Neuropathy, the burning, tingling numbness in the hands and feet, is one of the most debilitating complications of long-term diabetes. Alpha-lipoic acid has been studied in clinical settings as a therapeutic agent for this condition, and spinach provides it in its natural food form, embedded in a matrix of potassium, folate, and vitamin K that supports cardiovascular and bone health simultaneously. The red bell pepper is seventh, and it is one of the most nutrient-dense foods per calorie available anywhere in the produce section. A single medium red bell pepper contains more vitamin C than an orange, and this is not a trivial fact for a diabetic. Vitamin C and glucose compete for the same cellular transport mechanism. When blood sugar is chronically elevated, glucose essentially crowds out vitamin C at the cellular entry point, creating a functional vitamin C deficiency, even when dietary intake appears adequate. This suppresses the immune function, slows collagen synthesis, which is critical for wound healing, and accelerates the oxidative stress that damages blood vessels. Supplementing with vitamin C through food, rather than pills, ensures the presence of thousands of co-occurring phytochemicals that work synergistically. But the red bell pepper adds another dimension through its capsaicin content. Even sweet peppers contain trace amounts of capsaicin, and this compound activates receptors that stimulate thermogenesis, the generation of body heat through metabolic activity, and improves the efficiency with which muscle cells extract and oxidize glucose for energy. The combined effect of vitamin C reducing oxidative stress and capsaicin improving glucose oxidation in muscle tissue makes the red bell pepper one of the most systemically efficient vegetables on this list. Red cabbage is 8th, and it is the vegetable most likely to be underestimated at the grocery store. People see it and think coleslaw. They should think insulin sensitivity. Red cabbage contains one of the highest concentrations of anthocyanins of any commonly available vegetable, even higher than eggplant. Its particular anthocyanin profile includes cyanidin 3-glucoside, which has been specifically studied for its ability to activate GLUT4 transporters, the proteins that physically move glucose from your bloodstream into your muscle cells. This is one of the fundamental actions of insulin itself, and the fact that a food compound can replicate this activity through a partially independent pathway is remarkable. It means that even in a state of insulin resistance, where the primary signaling cascade is partially blocked, red cabbage's anthocyanins can help your muscle cells absorb glucose through a secondary route. Beyond this direct glucose management effect, red cabbage is powerfully anti-inflammatory. Chronic low-grade inflammation is now understood to be not merely a consequence of diabetes, but an active driver of it. It worsens insulin resistance, damages beta cells, and accelerates every vascular complication. The anthocyanins and sulforaphane precursors in red cabbage work together to suppress several of the key inflammatory signaling pathways involved in this cycle. It is also worth noting that the anti-inflammatory effect extends to the joints, meaning that the stiffness and arthritis that frequently accompany diabetes and aging may both respond to consistent red cabbage consumption. And now we return to the question I posed at the beginning of this video. Why is the most powerful vegetable on this list almost never mentioned in standard dietary advice for diabetics? The answer is garlic. And the reason it is underrepresented in official guidance is not that the research is thin, it is actually substantial, but that garlic is a food, not a patented molecule. There is no financial infrastructure to promote it. There are no clinical representatives visiting physicians' offices to leave behind samples and research summaries about allicin. And allicin is the compound at the center of everything garlic does. When you crush or chop a raw garlic clove, you rupture cellular structures and trigger an enzymatic reaction between allicin and allicinase that produces allicin. This compound is volatile. It begins to degrade within minutes of formation, which is why the method of preparation matters profoundly. Cooked garlic has health benefits, but significantly reduced allicin activity. For maximum effect, garlic should be crushed, allowed to rest for 10 minutes to allow full allicin development, and then consumed raw or added to a dish at the very end of cooking. What does allicin actually do? In clinical studies examining its effect on fasting blood glucose, it has been shown to stimulate the secretion of insulin from pancreatic beta cells and to improve insulin sensitivity in peripheral tissues. It reduces fasting glucose. It reduces LDL cholesterol. It reduces triglycerides. It inhibits platelet aggregation, reducing the risk of the blood clots that can cause heart attacks and strokes, the leading causes of death in diabetic patients. It is antimicrobial, supporting the gut microbiome by selectively reducing pathogenic bacterial populations while leaving beneficial strains largely intact. And its sulfur-containing compounds support the liver's detoxification pathways, closing the loop on the hepatic glucose dysregulation discussed earlier. One clove of raw garlic, crushed and added to a salad dressing, or eaten with a meal, works across your pancreas, your blood vessels, your microbiome, and your liver in a single action. And that is the larger point this video has been building toward. These 10 vegetables are not 10 separate interventions. They are 10 nodes in an interconnected biological network, and the body you are living in is that network. The Nopal feeds your microbiome, which reduces the inflammation that impairs your muscle cell insulin receptors. The spinach replenishes the magnesium that those same insulin receptors require to function. The broccoli activates the cellular antioxidant defenses that protect the beta cells in your pancreas from the oxidative damage caused by elevated glucose. The artichoke supports the liver that those beta cells depend on to coordinate with accurately. The garlic stimulates the insulin that the entire system needs. The red cabbage reduces the inflammation that the entire system suffers under. Each one amplifies the others. This is not a cure. This video does not exist to replace your physician or your medication. It exists because most people in your position are making dietary choices based on oversimplified, outdated, or commercially influenced guidance, and they deserve better. You deserve better. The relationship between what you eat and how your glucose behaves is enormously more sophisticated than a food pyramid or a glycemic index chart can capture, and you are capable of understanding that sophistication. You just need someone to explain it clearly. Try incorporating these 10 vegetables consistently over the next 30 days, raw where possible, lightly steamed when cooking is necessary, with the skins on whenever the vegetable has one. Consider building what I call a health salad. Cucumber with the skin, raw red cabbage, spinach, a roasted red bell pepper, 1 crushed raw garlic clove in the dressing, and a side of steamed broccoli and artichoke hearts. This is not a recipe for deprivation. It is a recipe for giving your body the molecular tools it has been asking for. You know what the problem is with diabetes and high blood sugar. Most people find out way too late, and by the time they do, they have no idea where to even start. That's why I decided to create a free guide. It's called the Glucose Paradox, and inside, you'll find everything you wish you'd known sooner. I'll explain how blood sugar actually works, and why your body sometimes reacts the exact opposite way you'd expect. That's why it's called a paradox. I've also included concrete habits you can start changing right now, even if you know zero about nutrition or medicine. It's free, you can download it in a second. And it might be the single most useful thing you do for your health today. Just click the link in the description to head to the site, drop your email, and get the guide sent straight to you. Don't put this off.